Walk into any house with me and start a timer for 60 seconds. By the time it hits 0, I'll tell you if it's a steal or a financial trap, because bad houses don't hide, they whisper. And buyers miss it because they're staring at the backsplash, the staged property, or the shiny faucets. In this video, I'm gonna give you the 60-second scan in the exact order I use in Ottawa to spot the houses that will bleed you in year 1. And stay to the end because I will show you the 3 Ottawa silent killers that look normal on a showing until the first big storm or the first deep freeze. If we haven't met, my name is Liam Swords. I'm a residential real estate agent right here in Ottawa since 2002. Over the last 2+ decades, I've sold over 1,000 homes. All of my contact information is below in the description. See, most people don't buy a bad house on purpose. They buy a bad house because they didn't know where to look first and they got emotionally attached to the property. So here's how it's gonna work. I'm gonna walk you through the 3-pass scan I call my street scan, my exterior scan, and then my interior scan. This is not a replacement for a home inspection. Let me be clear. This is how you avoid wasting your time going through an offer stage to find out that you're into a money pit and how to avoid falling in love with a problem. Let's get into it. Pass number 1, the 10-second street scan. Before I even touch the door handle of a property, I'm asking, is this location quietly punishing the house? What do I mean by that? Well, Ottawa has a lot of streets where 2 homes can be the same model, but one lives an easier life than the other. A quick red flag, right off a busy road, loud corner, heavy traffic route, backing onto commercial loading zones, high activity pathways, sitting downhill on the street from the neighbors. And in Ottawa, downhill matters because water always wins, especially during the spring melt or heavy rain. I'll give you an example. I just showed a property yesterday, in fact, and it was this beautiful property. Like the first impression, next level. The photos match the inside. It wasn't some fishbowl lens or like AI version, which we're seeing unfortunately in a lot of properties. The challenge, the property sat at the bottom of a hill where the rest of the property were. And the closer we looked at the property, this was going to be a major problem during a heavy rain or the melt, because all of the water was going to pool against the foundation. And in fact, when we were in the basement, we could see the efflorescence, which is the white dust that starts to permeate through the concrete on that side. So got to be careful of where the property is in the location physically in relation to the other homes. Number 2, what does the neighborhood tell you about the house? Like what I'm watching and what I'm looking for is the driveway and the parking. Like, is it a shared driveway? Right now, you might get along with the neighbors, but what if that property sells and the neighbor isn't as friendly? Like, are you just going to shovel like your mini path? There's no border or anything. As an example, try and find a property that has a solo driveway, the neighborhood maintenance. So not judging people. We're all busy. I'm busy. We got a young family, but how people keep their property is kind of a leading indicator on how they probably have their home and what the rest of the properties in the street look like. Now, this could be come across as like judgy, but a consideration. What are the neighbors like? How do the neighbors keep their property? Roof lines up and down the street. Like, does every house have new shingles? Bit of a telltale sign that probably if the property you're looking at, the shingles are older, it might be coming down line. The other thing, when you're thinking of a roof, always look at south and west facing. This is where you'll see the curling start first. Never look at the north or east. The sun doesn't hit it the same. Next is it a trouble lot? Ottawa is full of properties where the lot grading is the silent story. If you notice a yard that looks sunken, a driveway that slopes water towards the house, a lot that sits lower than the street, that's a pause. Not necessarily a no, but it's a flag. Pass number 2. So this is the exterior scan of the property. So I'd be walking up, I'd be doing my fast exterior sweep of what's happening on the street itself. Then I'm looking at the exterior of the property. So I look at the roof. Does it look tired or uneven? You're looking for missing shingles, curling edges, and again, look on the south and west sides. That's where the sun will hit it the most. Is there moss growth? Is there an area where there's like trees that are like dripping some leaves and water sitting, like that mold will start to work its way into the shingles and could soften some of the sheeting. If it's during the winter time, look for ice damming. So this is where ice will build up in the east troughs and there'll be ice and it could be damming. So water could be backing up on the shingles and starting to come in. Gutters and downspouts. Is that even there? New properties will hardly ever have them because it goes against the new build kind of code and carry on warranty, but they really are required in our area. We get a lot of rain in the spring, fall, and you want to make sure you get the water away from the property. So if you don't have gutters and downspouts, water's just going to drip, go against the foundation and could work its way in. Total cost for east trough, anywhere from $1,500 to $3,500, depending on the size of your property. A great investment, but just take a scan when you're outside. Does it have that? Another point about gutters, if they look packed or sagging or neglect, it's often a sign that you're probably dealing with a house that isn't really well maintained. Not a red flag, but just something that I would be acknowledging as I do my exterior scan. We hear the saying all the time, how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if, the one thing, if they can't keep their gutters clean, and if they're sagging or if there's leaves in them or water spilling over, are there other areas within the home that they've neglected? Again, not a red flag, but just an acknowledgement. What about the foundation and the brickwork and the parging? Are you seeing any cracks? Are they simply cosmetic or are they large? Are they hairline or they're gaps? Red flags are horizontal cracks where there's a gap, larger than ½ inch. Again, this is not an inspection video. This is simply a 60-second scan that allows you to detach the emotion and make sure you don't go head over heels on this property and get into a major pitfall. Cracks can be patched. There's lots of companies that can do it. So again, not a red flag that you need to walk away, but definitely something that you need to be aware of and bring forward if it's the one. Exterior ownership habits. So like windows, doors, trim, caulking, these are all expensive. They reveal how the home has been treated. So watch for rotting trim, fogging between the panes, doors that don't sit right or close, messy exterior repairs. It's the easy stuff that gets ignored that will turn into larger cost over time. Great. Now we're on to pass number 3. We're getting into the property. So this is where the house either holds up or it starts really showing its signs. The exact order I scan, and it's intentional. The first 5 seconds I walk in, I'm smelling. Is there any odor? Is it just pet odor? Or is it musty? Does it smell like heavy fragrance? Are the sellers trying to hide something? Does the air feel damp? Some of the most expensive problems don't show up on a walkthrough. Water history past, fire history past, insurance claim history. So your senses matter because they pick up what staging tries to hide. Next, I'm looking for floors sloping. So floors tell a lot about a property. Moisture, movement, cheap renovation, long-term neglect, quick telltale signs, spongy on laminate, buckled floorboards, gaps between the hardwood, tiles that are cracked in multiple spots, transitions that look like they're hiding unevenness. Now do this when you're in the property. Stand still for a second. Do you feel like you're leaning one way or the other? Look down a hallway. Does it feel subtly off? This can be normal or something larger. I'll give you an example. I live in a property that was built in 1920. When my wife and I were buying the property, it's a little bit off. That's called character. We looked at it thoroughly. We had an inspection. We even brought an engineer in to look how it was structurally. So we're okay with it. Properties will settle over time, but it's important to understand the era of the property. Like if you're looking at a home that's 3 to 5 years old and it's already showing settling issues, that's a major red flag. But if you're in a property like mine that was built in 1920, it's probably expected that it's settled a bit. But what's important is getting an engineer in to confirm that this isn't something that is continuing to settle quickly. Next 10 seconds, I'm looking at the ceilings and the corners of the property, because that is a really good telltale sign. See, whenever you install drywall, you're getting sheets of drywall 4x8 probably. They put them up, then they have to use mud and tape to make the edges smooth. Well, that will crack first. So you can really tell the integrity and how structurally sound a property is by looking at the ceilings and joints. Look at the corners, look at the ceiling. You're looking for small cracks. Hairline cracks, that's normal. Larger cracks, that's a lot bigger. Then you want to look where any of the bathrooms are, look at the floor below. Is there any bubbling? Has there been any leaking? Has the bathtub overflowed? Again, this can happen, but if it does, we want to understand why. So you have to ask the seller about the history on this. One patch, not a big deal. A pattern of patches, there's a story that we need to understand. Next, I'm looking at windows function and condensation clues. Open and close a couple windows if you can. Clues are if they're hard to open, if they're painted shut, if there's fogging between the panes, bubbling paint around the trim. And the Ottawa winter reality, well, old windows and poor insulation aren't just comfort issues, they're a real cost. Next, I'm looking at bad renovation. So DIY. So Ottawa has everything from professional renovated properties to weekend special work that people just head to Home Depot or Lowe's to get a bunch of stuff, and then they use YouTube to try and teach them how to redo a bathroom. So how to tell a risky renovation or a DIY? Crooked tile, uneven baseboard, loose fixtures, wobbly toilet, vanities not secured. Usually these details will come out in the finishing. To be a finished carpenter, you really have to know your craft, and most DIY and weekend warriors do not have that. So if the visible work is sloppy, the invisible work is usually worse. Next, I'm looking at underneath the sink. So bathrooms, underneath the kitchen sink, open up the kitchen sink and one bathroom sink. Look for water staining, warped wood, active drips, corrosion on the valves, mold spotting. It takes 10 seconds, but you can save thousands of dollars. A bonus check if there's a basement. What's the moisture story? If it's unfinished, look for obvious moisture marks, damp smell, dehumidifiers running, fresh paint only on the bottom of the wall, new baseboard in one suspicious area, and then the rest, the baseboard is older. And here's the big one from my experience. If the home has been sitting vacant, be extra cautious. No one's heating is priority. No one's noticing small leaks. Ottawa's freeze-thaw cycles punish neglected homes. Small issues become big issues when nobody is living in a property, and you want to catch them early. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, there's Ottawa silent killers. Here they are. There's 3 specific ones that you need to be aware of. Number 1, Ottawa history and drainage weakness. Water problems aren't always obvious on a sunny day. Look for clues outside. Downspouts dumping near or close to the foundation. Low grading towards the home. Sunken areas. Sloppy exterior patch jobs. Inside of the property, you're looking for musty smell, weirdly fresh paint in certain areas, and a dehumidifier that's always running. Anytime a home has had major water exposure, leak, backup, remediation, the immediate follow-up question should be, was it professionally dried out and repaired either through insurance or a professional? And we need to see the receipts and paid invoices, and then we do a background check on who the company was, because you're going to be assuming this property. Everything transfers over to you. So you need to get to the bottom of this and feel comfortable before you move forward. The silent killer number 2 is bad layout, meaning you can't fix it without serious money. Things like low ceilings, strange chopped up layouts. Sure, you can knock walls out, but what if they're structural? Then you're getting into engineers, you're getting into I-beams. How much is that actually going to cost? Awkward staircases, no real spot for the laundry, no storage. Not always a deal breaker, but it absolutely affects the resale value and the value today. Silent killer number 3, electrical surprises. I'm not telling you to pull panels apart, but what you can notice are warning signs of extension cords that are powering major areas, flickering lights when appliances run, fuses versus breakers, messy, visible wiring. Do not go into the panel and start rooting around in this. You're simply doing a visual inspection on what you see. And if it's starting to look messy in a first showing, I can almost guarantee once you get to a home inspection or you have a licensed electrician looking at it, it's going to cost a lot of money, which again, that's fine. You need to know what it's going to cost before officially signing off on the property, because this is going to be your problem once you take possession. So you need to monetize what that will be so you're not stuck with that down the road. So my 60-second scorecard. Here's how I decide quickly. If you spot one issue, that's normal. Houses aren't perfect. If you spot 2 or 3 issues in the same category, like multiple moisture clues, that's a serious pause. If you spot 4 or more different systems that are going sideways, like the roof, foundation, moisture, sloppy renovations, then you got to really pause and find out what's that's actually going to cost. If you love the home, that's great. Do a deal, but find out up front what it's going to cost and then negotiate off of that. You have virtually no leverage once the deal's done. Yes, you can go to small claims court, you can do all these things, but why not deal with it up front? Because if they're not going to negotiate at time of offer, they're really not going to negotiate in court when you take them there. My quick coaching and mentorship moment, because this will save you a lot of money. 2 questions to change how you negotiate. How long is the property being on the market and why are you selling? Because motivation is the pricing power. If it's been sitting, buyers assume something's wrong, even if it's just pricing. So don't guess, verify. And one more thing, don't assume paperwork tells the whole story. Treat it like a starting point, not a safety net. Do your own professional due diligence, even if it costs you money to bring an engineer in. Like I mentioned, my property, built in 1920, my wife and I paid $1,000 for an engineer to come in and look at our property in our due diligence process to make sure that our property was structurally sound. That was like the best $1,000 we spent in a long time. We have the peace of mind. Your protection is good questions, documentation, a proper home inspection, and then further due diligence, the non-negotiable reminder. And even if you go through this list and the house feels clean, this does not give you permission to skip a home inspection. This checklist helps you avoid obvious money pits. The home inspection finds out what you can't see. Don't waive it. And if you're serious about avoiding costly surprises, you need to check out my next video right here, where I reveal the 9 deal breakers that can kill a deal after the inspection.